Hello, everyone. My name is Ezra, otherwise known as E Soup, and today we are starting my very first Baihe novel, The Beauty's Blade, or Meiren Jian, and I am super excited. I know the basic premise of this. I read it like a while ago, but I haven't looked at like the back of the book or anything in a little while, so I don't really have a ton of expectations going into this. I'm super excited to go in. Like it's again not completely blind, but like I I don't know a lot. So I'm just ready for the story to take me in whatever direction we're going. Hi Seraph. Oh, you loved this book. I'm glad to hear it. I know a lot of people who are joining me today probably haven't read this yet. Um, but it's cool. It's cool to have someone who's read it in the chat. Hi, Blue. Hi, Juka Fifi. Oh, you're a first-time Baihe reader too, but really excited. Yeah. Um, I've honestly, I have some fan translations of Baihe that are like bookmarked, and I was going to read them, and I just have way too many things that I'm reading right now, so I hadn't gotten to it yet. Um, so unfortunately, this is my first Baihe, but it definitely won't be the last. I forget the titles right now, but there are like two Baiha novels from Rosme that I ordered. I forget, I'm not sure if they're out yet, but I don't have them yet. But they're possible contenders for like future live stream like down the line, or possibly something to do on my audiobook channel in the future. Um so at some point more Baiha will be happening for sure on one of my channels. Um, and especially since this is only a single volume book, it's very short. But there will be more. I definitely need. It's good. It's good that Seven Seas licensed. I think three more Baihas. I think they're all by the same author. I definitely need them to do more. But it's a good start. Um, So today we are reading chapters 1 through 7. It looks like they're very short chapters. Thank you, Nina, once again for doing the page math. And hi, I see Cookie, Nina, Vase is here. Good to see all of you. Sarah, if you said I read all of it on release day because women, that's a very valid reason. Oh yeah, Blue, you said FGEP is in my priority reading list and has been there forever, and yet, no, understandable. Sometimes you just, things in your reading list, they sit there and they become sort of, um, it becomes sort of like this hurdle, like, oh my God, I really want to read this, I've got to read it. And for some reason it starts to become scary. Um, but yeah, I mean, same here, that's on my reading list. Um, I can't remember which Baiha it is, but there's one where there's like a trailer and a bunch of content for an animation that's supposed to happen. I don't know when it's actually coming out, but there's like an intro, a trailer. I need to look that up again and like remember which novel that actually was, but it's like absolutely beautiful. Oh, Cookie, thank you. That's JWQS. I also I know what these are vaguely, but I keep forgetting what the acronyms stand for. Um, yes, clear and muddy loss of love. That was it. It's so beautiful. I'll try to find that link again and like drop it in the Discord later because it's so gorgeous. And when that like Donghua actually drops, oh my God, like it looks so good. Yes, Seraph, it's for clear and muddy loss of love. But I don't really know the story of like where the studio is at on working on it. I don't know when it's going to come out. Um, Hopefully it hasn't been like shelved, but there is like a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube from it. Um, and I don't know the story of like where they're technically, releasing it out of, if it's like censored or not. I definitely want to find out more about it. But I feel like the trailer and stuff has been out for a while, so I'm hoping that comes out, I don't know, relatively soon, but I don't know. I don't know the news on it currently. It just looks really cool. Oh, interesting. Blue, you said FGEP had a Donghua 2. You watched the first episode ages ago, so like it's already out. If it was that, okay, if it was that, you prefer to read first and watch later. I'll have to look into that. If that's a thing too, that's really cool because I had no idea. Um, oh yeah, you're gonna fact check that. Okay, gotcha. Um, okay, so, oh yeah, if we haven't already, well, I know I've shown it to some of you guys in previous streams, but like, look at this cover. Look at it. It's so beautiful. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get started. We are on chapter 1 for Yu Shengyan. A great first sentence. She had particularly beautiful hands, the skin luminously pale and fingers delicately tapered. Hands like these, the hands of the young lady of a wealthy house, should have been plucking chin strings or holding an embroidery needle. Instead, they just so happened to grasp the hilt of a sword. If those hands were beautiful, then their owner was even more so. Never mind those lustful young masters. The bloom of her smile made even children and the elderly catch their breaths and drink deep of her alluring gaze. A beauty like her smiled often. The curve of her lips was like a rich wine, tempting enough for anyone to drown in it. The self-proclaimed heroes of the Jianghu wanted her, and so did the villains who believed their martial skills without equal. Each of them was certain that only a true warrior like himself would be a proper match for the most beautiful woman in the world. Unfortunately, all those moved to action by their lust were stymied by the fact that this goddess among mortals was Fu Wanqing. Hundreds of years ago, the stand against the threat of evil in the Jianghu, so-called righteous warriors, to stand against the threat of evil in the Jianghu, so-called righteous warriors had formed the Light Path Alliance. Now 5 families dominated the rest. Diantang Sect, the House of Valor, Hawk's Roost, the Arcane Order, and the Wei Yong Company. Take notes, I guess. we're getting all the sect names right now. Of these 5, the House of Valor was the strongest. Its master was Fu Hui, first among the righteous martial warriors of the Wulin. Oh, that's our first footnote. The Wulin refers to the community of martial artists who inhabit the Jianghu, as opposed to the broader underground society of Jianghu denizens, which might include artisans, merchants, thieves, and so on. Interesting, so it's like specifically the fighters in the Jianghu. Its master was Fu Hui, first among the righteous martial warriors of the Wulin, and Fu Hui's only daughter was the infamous Fu Wanqing. Over the years, the righteous Wulin had evolved and transformed, while the dark side slaughtered each other until only the Jade Water Guild remained. All the disciples of demonic sects obeyed the guild's orders. A breeze fluttered through Fu Wanqing's hair, revealing eyes glittering with mirth. The old man in gray beside her immediately lowered his head and looked away. "My lady," he said respectfully, "there's—" Fu Wanqing giggled. "Throw them out." She flicked her fingers. A beam of green-blue light flew past, her sword slotting with perfect precision into its faraway sheath. Fu Wanqing didn't even bother to look in its direction. "Uncle Rong, don't you know me by now? Throw all those visiting young lords out." "No," said Fu Rong. He looked away from her sword and swallowed. "The High Priestess of the Jade Water Guild has come to Jiangnan." Yu Shangyan. Fu Wanqing's eyes abruptly lit up. She licked her lips, grinning again. I know what she's here for. When Lo Kexin, her Shijie, came to the Central Plains 3 years ago, I snapped the tendons in both her legs. There's one more medicinal ingredient Yu Shangyan needs to heal her. And, well, it's right here in the House of Valor. No wonder she's come personally. Yu Shangyan was a legendary figure. Though she was the high priestess of the demonic guild, virtually no one in the Jianghu spoke poorly of her. They could curse the demonic disciples until they were blue in the face, but they wouldn't speak one single word against Yu Shangyan. Because of her sword, and because of her face. In all the vastness of the Jianghu, the only person with looks on par with Fu Wanqing's was Yu Shangyan. Of course. If a fifth of the Jianghu's men were devoted to their own lovers, the 2/5 were obsessed with Fu Wanqing. Then the rest worshipped Yu Shangyan. Anticipation rose in Fu Wanqing's heart, or perhaps it was jealousy. Where is she now? She asked coolly, running her fingers over the jade ring on her thumb. Fu Rong took a long moment to reply. The House of Flowing Gold, he said reluctantly. The beauties on offer at the House of Flowing Gold were famously enthralling. All visitors to Yangzhou, no matter who they were, called at the House of Flowing Gold to indulge in drunken revelry amongst those perfumed flowers. That near-constant smile on Fu Wanqing's face disappeared, and her entire bearing sharpened like the edge of a sword. She recalled some Jianghu rumors about the Jadewater Guild. Was it true love, or merely careless debauchery? Fu Wanqing gave an icy snort, the smile returning to her face. She's not worthy of Yu Shangyan. She meant Lo Kexin. Fu Wanqing had never met Yu Shangyan, but she knew of her looks and temperament from descriptions spread across the Jianghu. She had, however, met Lo Kexin. She was reckless, impulsive, and arrogant, and lacked the skills to back it up. If none of the men of the Jianghu were worthy of Yu Shangyan, Lo Kexin certainly wasn't. Yeah, the jealousy is real here. Based on our reports, Yu Shangyan was lured in after helping a fallen elder to their feet. It's doubtful she knows what that place is. The House of Flowing Gold has proclaimed their acquisition of a peerless beauty far and wide. They've already sent invitations to everyone in the city. Tonight, the highest bidder gets to have her. Fu Rong faltered. The fury radiating from Fu Wanqing forced him back a few steps. Her smile was still in place, but years of experience with Fu Wanqing told him she was seething. Yu Shangyan is mine, she snapped. No one else may touch her. Okay, interesting. So, Fu Wanqing is already interested in Yu Shangyan and hasn't even met her yet. She sent out a palm strike and reduced a nearby boulder to dust. Fu Rong looked at the pile of gravel and shook his head slightly. People spoke of the master of the house as first among the Wulin, and when they mentioned the young lady, they'd merely refer to her as the most beautiful woman in the world, or the young mistress of the House of Valor. They had no idea she had long since surpassed her father. Fu Rong knew what Fu Wanqing was getting at, but just as he was about to issue instructions to his subordinates, she shocked him again. "Hold it," she cried. "Have them prepare a horse. I'll go myself." A thoroughbred charged past the courtyard gates in a flamboyant whirl of black hair and crimson robes. At the sound of clomping hooves, the people on the street rushed to get out of the way. A man directly in the horse's path crouched down with his arms over his head. awaiting the doom that was soon to befall him. Wind tore at his clothes. With a loud whinny, the horse and the beauty astride it flew over his head, leaving only a dazzling scarlet afterimage. The man stood up and stared dazedly after her. Someone smacked him on the shoulder. "What do you think you're looking at? That red rose of a woman is the House of Valor's young mistress. What right do you have to set your sights on her?" In the ensuing outburst of laughter and teasing, the man was shaken to his senses. His face went red. "It's not just me," he mumbled as he went to pick up his scattered belongings. "I doubt any man in the world is a match for her." "No, but a certain woman is." Fu Wanqing rode toward the House of Flowing Gold. At the doors, she leapt from her horse and threw the reins to the servant, ignoring their shouts as she swept inside. No one in Yangzhou City could fail to recognize her as Fu Wanqing, and no one would dare stop her. Though there would likely be a new rumor to bandy about the Jianghu concerning Fu Wanqing's preference for the pleasures of women rather than the swords of heroes. Not the swords of heroes. The sickening sweetness of perfumed makeup filled the expansive hall. Drunken men sat with half-lidded eyes, one arm around the girl in their lap, while the other reached for the girl pouring wine. Only the dregs of society came to the first floor of the House of Flowing Gold, and the beauties that waited on them were the establishment's lowest ranked. As Fu Wanqing hurried up the rosewood stairs, she heard rough pants and stifled mules through the walls. She snatched at a passing servant, but her interrogation was cut short by the sound of a distant Jian playing in a room at the end of the hallway. It was her. It was Yu Shengyan. Fu Wanqing didn't know how she sensed it, or why she was so certain, but she threw that bothersome servant aside and rushed toward the music. Her hand was on the blackwood door when she hesitated. If it really was Yu Shengyan, what should she do? And what would she do if it wasn't? The disconcerting realization struck her that she didn't even know why she was here. Was she seeking a duel with Yu Shengyan, like the one 3 years ago when she snapped the tendons in Lo Kexian's legs? As soon as she thought of it, hunger flared to life inside her heart, like a ball of flame. Yes, Fu Wanqing was seeking Yu Shengyan to cross swords with her. Only one of them could live. She would not allow anyone to speak of herself and Yu Shengyan in the same breath. Sure. Fu Wanqing pushed the door open and strode inside. The woman within didn't seem surprised in the slightest, and her chin playing continued uninterrupted. A sheer veil hung between them, and Fu Wanqing couldn't get a good look at her face. I love the thing with characters being separated by veils. Oh, it's so fun. A breeze came through the intricately carved window frame, and fragrant smoke rose from a duck-shaped censer in lingering spirals. The woman behind the drapes appeared almost like a mirage. The music was perfect in clarity and tone, every sound exquisitely expressed. As unfathomable as an abyss, and as insurmountable as a distant mountain peak. If the player summoned internal force as she played, the music could easily have become a fatal strike. Fu Wanqing tensed, killing intent flickering in her eyes. Her hand closed around the hilt of her sword, but then the music changed, becoming slow and delicately lingering, gentle as a soft springtime breeze. Somehow, it captured Fu Wanqing's attention and brought her wholly into the scene visualized by the player. When the song came to an end, she found her palms were sweating. Yu Shengyan, you're Yu Shengyan. Fu Wanqing jolted to her feet. Heedless of propriety, she brushed that sheer veil aside and charged in. A woman dressed all in white sat beside the chin stand, her expression cold with perfect indifference. Fu Wanqing had never believed she could feel inferior to any woman, but she was sure that anyone would when faced with Yu Shangyan. The thought only lasted a moment, though, before it was snuffed out. The gleam of Fu Wanqing's blade shone in her eyes and her smile. Your Shijie fell to my sword 3 years ago. Aren't you going to take revenge? Hi, Henry. I'm glad you could make it. That is the end of the chapter. So now we know on our cover, Yu Shangyan is the one in white. And Fu Wanqing is the one in red. And if I'm recalling correctly, Yu Shangyan is the one from the demonic sect. So demonic sect woman is the one wearing white, which is interesting. Yeah, Blue, as you say, the dynamics are starting to dynamic. So we are on page 19 for chapter 2, House of Gold. Yu Shangyan glanced at the sword pressed to her neck, at its terribly sharp blade, which could have pierced her throat with the slightest flick. Her expression remained apathetic. She looked up at the beaming woman in front of her. Revenge, she said flatly. My Shijie was weak. Why would I take revenge? This woman who seethed with enmity. Yu Shangyan knew who she was, but to her no one was ever any more than a passing traveler. With the sweep of her sleeves, she leaped up and landed several yards away, cool and distant, like a woman without a soul. Her indifference infuriated Fu Wanqing. With a flick of her sword, and no thought to Yu Shangyan, she sent out 72 strikes. In the blink of an eye, all of Yu Shangyan's escape routes were sealed. She was going to duel her. They were going to have an all-out fight. The very thought made Fu Wanqing strike out fiercely. Yu Shangyan defended herself, but she never advanced. Amid the storm of sword glares, her footwork was dazzlingly light. Whenever Fu Wanqing struck, Yu Shangyan dodged, every single time. In the wake of the clashing barrage, nearly everything in the room was destroyed. Ferocious sword energy flared out through the window, upsetting a pot of flowers hanging on the ledge. Yu Shangyan leapt to its rescue, but Fu Wanqing's ruthless sword met her there. Yu Shangyan twisted backward just in time to evade her blade, although it sheared off a lock of her hair. The room sank into a silence deep enough to hear a pin drop. Yu Shangyan ran a thoughtless hand through her hair and resettled the potted plant, before turning back to Fu Wanqing. Enough, she said, voice light. I've lost. Lady Fu, you may leave. Fu Wanqing was still incensed. She couldn't even force one of her habitual false smiles. The corners of her mouth twitched stiffly upward, and she tightened her grip on her sword. That didn't count, she shouted. You didn't even draw your weapon. Where is your unseen sword? Lady Fu. Exasperation crept into Yu Shangyan's voice. We have no quarrel. I will not fight you. I don't care for fame or riches. I will not grant you the duel you want. This room has been thoroughly destroyed, and I'm afraid I won't be able to pay for it. The house's master will be upset. Rage sparked in Fu Wanqing's eyes. Approaching Yu Shangyan, she stared into her impassive face. She tightened her hands into fists inside her sleeves to avoid grabbing Yu Shangyan by the collar. No, why avoid that? Don't avoid that. This woman had gotten on every single one of her nerves from the moment they met. Fu Wanqing could never control her emotions around her. I'll pay for it, she insisted. And who says we have no quarrel? You're the high priestess of the demonic guild, and I'm the only daughter of the Light Path Alliance leader. We were born enemies. Duel me. She hissed the words through clenched teeth. That's even more reason not to fight. Yu Shangyan shook her head and sighed. The people of the Wulin are already prejudiced against the Jadewater Guild. If I duel you, our reputation will be unsalvageable. I refuse to draw my sword. You should go. Ma'am? A shaking voice came into earshot. The servant desperately clutched the door frame, shuddering as they looked into the room. Master asks that you go. The servant didn't even look at them. As soon as they delivered their message, they fled as if a tiger was at their back. An idea popped into Fu Wanqing's head. I'm busy. Please see yourself out. With those parting words, Yu Shangyan left the room. Fu Wanqing watched her go, her lips curling into a splendid smile. I wonder what idea she's got. Yeah, Blue, that's a good point. I'm gonna go off on a limb and assume that the sword being called unseen means that you won't see it that easily. It's right in the name. A day in the House of Flowing Gold was worth the cost 1,000-fold. Those lustful young masters had nearly driven themselves mad before they'd caught so much as a glimpse of that legendary beauty. Fu Wanqing sat in a little room on the second floor, only allowing herself to look down once she'd sent all the simpering servants away. Those willing to venture inside the House of Flowing Gold were mostly Jianghu warriors. The wealthy businessmen and powerful officials might have had money or status, but they still feared those ruthless blades. And most common people did all they could to avoid the people of the Jianghu. Among the crowd she saw those from righteous sects and those from darker paths. Insignificant nobodies, and the stuff of legend alike. Auctioning off a woman as if she were an object. Absolutely despicable. Fu Wanqing smiled, but her eyes were cold enough to cause frostbite. She watched those deranged men bid exorbitant sums to buy a beauty's favor, studied the old madam with her face sagging with wrinkles, and her gaze pierced the heavy drapes that hid Yu Shangyan, who didn't even know she was being sold off. So like, she's been tricked into going here, and they're bidding for her, and then whoever wins is going to, like, kidnap her? Great, cool. But also, I want to see them manage to do that, because I don't think they're going to succeed. One of the young masters stood up, flicking out his fan, whispers rising around him. 1,000 taels. He hid his faint smile with his fan, gesturing airily. Of gold. The crowd fell silent. Fu Wanqing recognized him. Guo Caifei, the only son of the Gold King Guo Dayong. Guo Dayong had once been the head of the Weiyang Company, before he'd gone into the gold mining business and become filthy rich almost overnight. He was a friend to many in the Jianghu, but his son was every bit a spoiled wastrel. Smugness scrawled itself over Guo Caifei's features. Anyone else? I'll raise you 1 copper penny. A spate of mad laughter came drifting in. Like a gale of wind, a little man, both short and fat, came whirling into the room. His hand only touched Guo Caifei's shoulder for an instant, but he went flying like a kite off a string. He crashed to the ground, yowling, and couldn't get up for a long time. The newcomer had hair as scraggly as horseweed, leering with blackened and yellowed teeth. He was hideous. When people spoke of ugly, lustful men who used their scant martial skill to despoil women, they meant people like him. The 4 rats of Black Peak, as they were known, lacked all morals, and those present had already recognized the newcomer as one of them, Zeimei Shu. His martial skills weren't impressive. He was weaker than many of the assembled men. But the four rats moved in a pack. Those in the crowd could fight off one, but perhaps not all four. And behind them stood the might of Black Peak Hall. For a moment, everyone only watched, unsure of how to proceed. Someone spat. "Fourth bro, you want her in bed for 1 copper penny? Dream on." Blue, I first heard the four rats of Blackpink. It did kind of sound like that. Oh no, new Blackpink lore dropped. No, it's okay. Blackpink is like the most ubiquitous K-pop girl group. Oh my god. Oh, a cookie, that's what you heard too. There came another shrill cackle. A small, wiry man leapt down from the roof, and with further shrieks, the other two rats came crawling from the other two corners of the room. They had no care at all for their own griminess, patting mindlessly at the dirt that covered them. "Hurry up and get out," one shouted. "Unless you want to fight me for my woman." Around them, the room emptied out. A pack of cowards, thought Fu Wanqing as she watched the young masters go. With Yu Shangyan's skill, dealing with these four would be as easy as breathing. But the thought of these lowlifes catching sight of her face annoyed Fu Wanqing profoundly. She leapt down from the balcony, facing the ugly foursome with a smile. What if I said yes? Her expression instantly melted the four rats. Zeimei Shu stared at Fu Wanqing with greed shining in his eyes. "Come here, gorgeous. Forget that Yan something. I want you instead." "Fourth bro, you're insane. You're thinking with the wrong head. Can't you see who she is?" Apparently, one of the four rats of Black Peak still possessed a brain. I really want to say Blackpink now. It's going to be hard to shake. He shook himself out of his momentary stupor and plastered a polite expression back on his face. "Lady Fu, we'll keep to ourselves. You enjoy yourself, and we'll enjoy our women." Fu Wanqing giggled, cocking her head and batting her eyelashes. "What if I want her too?" For an instant their expressions froze. Then malice seeped in. Zeimei Shu was the first to lose his composure. "Go fuck yourself," he roared. "You little bitch. Can't you tell when you're being offered a way out? Do you really think your house of valor is worth all that? Remember, insulting Black Peak is the same as insulting the Jadewater Guild." Phase. Fu Wanqing flung out her hand, and the resulting strike hit Zeimei Shu in the face. He went flying into a pillar and crashed to the ground, completely dazed. Now that Fu Wanqing had attacked, the four rats dropped their neutral stance. Their weapons came hissing out of their sheaths, but they were still only watching, hesitant, as if assessing Fu Wanqing's abilities. The Light Path Alliance has always been the enemy of the Demonic Guild. Have you forgotten? Fu Wanqing laughed. These failures weren't worthy of the sword in her hand. Let's charge. Take her down, and we'll have something sweet for the first course. Blinded by lust to the very end. Fu Wanqing batted her lashes and leaned against the table, as if she hadn't noticed the filth they were spewing. Weapons came at her from all directions, but she didn't move a muscle. Not because she couldn't dodge, but because her attackers were already dead. What threat could come from weapons wielded by corpses? A shame about her blood-stained clothes, though. Without a moment's hesitation, Fu Wanqing tore off her outer robe and threw it aside. She glanced at the quaking madam of the house. "The 1,000 taels of gold? I'll pay it." To take Lady Fu to... Before the woman could finish, Fu Wanqing leaped up the stairs. "Henry, you said doesn't Blackpink have 4 members too?" Days. You said, yup. Oh my god, that's amazing. That's perfect. The room was neat and elegantly appointed. Yu Shangyan pushed open the door with a creak. Nothing in her gaze changed when she saw Fu Wanqing, as if she'd known she would find her here. She sat down across from her. I smell blood, she said lightly. You've killed people. Fu Wanqing scoffed. They deserved to die. She met Yu Shangyan's gaze and grinned, rising to her feet to place a hand on her shoulder. Her lips curled up further as she felt Yu Shangyan shudder. Then she plunked herself into her lap. Fu Wanqing put her arms around Yu Shangyan's neck. The House of Flowing Gold, she cooed. The House of Flowing Gold. Do you know what kind of place it is? That's the end of the chapter. Well, I was about to say that it's interesting because Yu Shangyan seems like the more stereotypically like noble one, but she's the one who's from the demonic sect. So everything feels like it's turned on its head right now. And then also that just happened. Well, we're on page 27 for chapter 3, which is called Painted Nudes. Yes, exactly right, Henry. The demonic cultivator is the Lan Wangji of the duo. Very few people in the world could resist the enchantment of Fu Wanqing's smile, but Yu Shangyan managed it. Apart from a minute shiver at first, I feel like that's important, she never moved. She didn't so much as blink when Fu Wanqing sat in her lap. It wasn't because she was a woman that she was immune to Fu Wanqing's charms. Rather, it was because she was Yu Shangyan. Yu Shangyan, the renowned high priestess of the demonic guild. The Jianghu's one and only Yu Shangyan of the unseen sword. Fu Wanqing's arms were around her neck. Their shallow breaths mingled. Their faces drew closer together, until only the slightest gap remained. One burned like fire, and the other like ice. When two women of such utter opposites came together, their union was shockingly harmonious, impossibly magnificent. Yu Shangyan gazed into Fu Wanqing's laughing eyes, but saw only her own reflection. Yu Shangyan hadn't answered her question. She didn't know what kind of place this was, nor did she care to. She hadn't been the one to knock the old lady down, but she had accidentally dropped her while helping her up. She had agreed to stay one night at the House of Flowing Gold in compensation. Outside, night was falling. The colorful hanging lanterns were glowing brighter. Henry. Yu Shangyan's unflappable demeanor deepened the frustration in Fu Wanqing's heart. The high priestess of a demonic guild ought to have a cruel nature and a thirst for blood. But anyone who met Yu Shangyan on the street would think she was an elegant young lady from a rich family, or a celestial goddess banished to the earth. They'd never suspect this was that terrifying demon priestess. When Fu Wanqing was displeased, she wanted everyone around her to feel it too. That was just the type of person she was. Unfortunately for her, she was part of the Fu clan, and her father was an illustrious hero revered by the Jianghu. She'd been a figurehead for righteousness from the moment she was born, and under all that public scrutiny, she had little choice but to conform to the expected mold. After years of all that pressure, she spent every waking moment craving the freedom of total indulgence. One thought had always haunted her. What if she'd been born in the demonic guild? Would she have already destroyed the righteous Wulin of the Central Plains? Fu Wanqing gave a burbling laugh. She'd forgotten for a moment that she was in Yu Shangyan's lap, and when she leaned back, she nearly slid off. Hands wrapped around her waist, pulling her upright once more. Fu Wanqing reached out unthinkingly, pressing at whatever was in front of her. But the softness she found stunned her to silence. She yanked her hands back as if burned, but the speed made her look even guiltier. Fu Wanqing certainly wouldn't admit to it, though. She put her arm back around Yu Shengyan's shoulders, pressing herself close until her mouth was at Yu Shengyan's ear. She whispered, voice flickering with humorous allure. "Oh, the House of Flowing Gold is a place for men to have their fun. Women can come here for boy toys of their own, of course. But you disciples of the Jadewater Guild aren't quite the same." Are we implying... I can't tell if we're implying that, like, all the women in the Jadewater Guild are lesbians, or if we're just implying that the Jadewater Guild is, like, kind of, you know, abstinent or something, or just not interested. Fu Wanqing's eyes glittered, her gaze like the satin flick of a feather against one's heart. A hint of confusion rose in Yu Shengyan's eyes. "What do you mean?" Fu Wanqing exhaled gently, against Yu Shengyan's ear. She was loath to part from the chill fragrance of her body, but Yu Shengyan's profound ignorance was such a rarity that Fu Wanqing felt duty-bound to fill the gap in her knowledge. She herself came quite often to the House of Flowing Gold, if not for the reasons most people did. She visited solely for violence, but as time passed, she'd gradually figured some things out. Fu Wanqing slithered from Yu Shengyan's lap and went to one of the cabinets, pushing it open and fishing out a booklet of paintings. She smacked it down in front of Yu Shengyan and calmly sat back down across from her, awaiting the crimson flush sure to overtake her face. Yu Shengyan reached for the booklet. Instantly, Fu Wanqing's eyes caught on her fingers. Unlike her own hands, Yu Shengyan's were lightly calloused from use of her sword. Having discovered an imperfection, Fu Wanqing smiled in satisfaction. An imperfection. Pages flicked loudly. Yu Shengyan read at great speed. She went through the entire thing in the span of a single pot of tea. Her face did not change, her eyes remaining coolly distant. Fu Wanqing recalled sneakily looking at erotic pictures when she was younger, still girlishly embarrassed and terrified of getting caught. But Yu Shengyan flipped through this booklet as if she was reading saintly teachings. Had Fu Wanqing grabbed the wrong book? She looked over Yu Shengyan's shoulder and immediately got an eyeful of a couple happily entwined. Oh my gosh, and there's art. There's art of her whispering in her ear. Hold on, I need to be able to see the... Okay, here we go. This is an interesting art style. I like it. Very, very happy with our first art. Blue, do they need to kill me with art too? The room was silent, apart from their hushed breathing and the flipping of pages. Yu Shengyan reached the final page and put the book down. "I finished it," she said lightly. Fu Wanqing was at a total loss for words. After a moment, irritation overtook her. "Now do you understand what kind of place this is? Do you realize what staying here overnight means? If you wanted to leave, no one could stop you." "But I promised that old lady I would stay," Yu Shengyan replied. "Good." Anger sparked in Fu Wanqing's eyes. She stared at Yu Shengyan, biting out every word. "I've given her the gold, which means I bought you for the night. I want a duel. Let's go to the back courtyard. I know why you've come here from the demonic guild. If you win, I'll give you the medicine you're looking for. Yu Shengyan's eyes lit up. She knew the medicine was kept in the House of Valor, and that Fu Wanqing just so happened to be that house's lady. But she had her own principles and position, and she refused to win the medicine in a duel. In the end, she shook her head. I cannot fight you. Fu Wanqing stared at her. Why? She so clearly wanted it. Why was she holding herself back? The apathy finally dropped from Yu Shengyan's face, and a deep darkness rose in her eyes. Inside her sleeves, her fingers tightened into fists. The unseen sword only leaves its sheath to kill, and I don't want to kill you. That person had told her the thirst for blood consumed the wielder's original nature. She could not take a life out of a momentary impulse. Fu Wanqing scoffed. And you're so sure you'd win? Yu Shengyan didn't respond, but she was sure. She'd taken Fu Wanqing's measure when she attacked her. She was stronger than the Jianghu gave her credit for, but she was not Yu Shengyan's equal. Yu Shengyan was not one to boast, but those peaceful eyes of hers had never judged wrongly. Her gaze pinned Fu Wanqing down like the weight of a mountain range, leaving her struggling to breathe. Her sword was suddenly drawn and pressed against Yu Shengyan's jade-like neck, leaving a line of blood. Did Yu Shengyan fear her, or did she think Fu Wanqing was beneath her? Either option infuriated Fu Wanqing, but she too had her principles, and would not fight an unarmed opponent. Under Yu Shengyan's serene gaze, she felt the flames of her own rage slowly snuff out. Annoyed, Fu Wanqing sheathed her sword and sat down sloppily on the stool. I don't care. I bought you for the night, so you have to do as I say. How many years had passed since Lady Fu had indulged in such shameless whining? She pursed her mouth in embarrassment almost as soon as the words left her tongue. Yu Shengyan ignored her. I promised the woman I'd stay one night, she said coolly, but I never agreed to duel anyone. Fu Wanqing jolted to her feet. What if a man came in here? You won't duel me, but what about rolling around in bed with a man? Would you do that? Yu Shengyan shot her a glance. But it was you who came. That brought Fu Wanqing up short for a moment, but she soon regained her footing. Yu Shengyan, she said with a laugh. Between the two of us, there must be one victor. I don't care if you... My lady. Before Fu Wanqing could finish, a man dressed in gray rushed in, mopping at his sweaty brow, gasping for breath. My lady, Master heard you got into a fight at the House of Flowing Gold. He's furious. He wants you back at the manor right now. Impatience flickered in Fu Wanqing's eyes. She wasn't in the mood to talk to Yu Shengyan anymore. Glaring at the servant, she shouted, Then hurry up. The rumors had flown across Yangzhou in a scant few hours, and by now even her old man had heard. Fu Wanqing knew exactly what kind of nonsense people would be spreading about her. That Lady Fu preferred pleasure to duty, that she spent inconceivable riches on the favors of a beautiful woman, that Lady Fu would stoop to an all-out brawl to take someone else's girl. Humiliating accusations, to be sure. Fu Wanqing threw back her head and laughed in sheer delight. That's the end of the chapter. I think I'm going to read one more and then take my break. We are on page 35 for chapter 4, which is called Nighttime Guest. You know, in a single volume, we do move fast, huh? Yeah, Blue, I agree. I'm having so much fun already. Yeah, these are really short chapters. There's like... There are like 52 chapters in this one single book. Beneath the paintings of the four seasons that hung inside the great hall, steam rose softly from teacups on the rosewood table. The cushions on two of the wooden chairs were slightly indented. It was clear guests had just left. A middle-aged man in scholar's robes stood with his back to the doors, twisting his beard in his hands. Suddenly, his ears pricked up and he whirled around with a shout. "So you finally decided to come home. What a mess. You've made yourself a laughingstock for nothing." His yowling boomed in her ears like thunder, but it was her lilting laugh that drifted into the room first, followed by her fiery, red-garbed silhouette. Fu Wanqing faced her enraged father without any fear in her eyes. She reached for a painted porcelain cup, before her brows furrowed with distaste. With a sweep of her sleeve, the cup went hurtling toward the doors. No one in the House of Valor was what they seemed. Even the servants possessed formidable martial skills. The man leapt into the air at once, flipping in mid-air to perform a seamless catch. He landed with the cup held firmly, not a single drop spilled. Meanwhile, a servant girl dressed in pink had already brought in a new tea tray and prepared a fresh cup for Fu Wanqing. Fu Wanqing sipped at it, eyes lidding in satisfaction. "What did you summon me for, Dad?" Fu Hui stared at her, eyes bulging. His fists clenched with the force of his outrage. Sudden energy shifted around him, billowing through his blue robes. Teacups clinked together, shaking from the outpouring of true qi. Fu Wanqing was unintimidated by his display. Crossing her legs, she hummed one of the ditties she'd heard in the brothel. Only when the tune was finished did she speak, her voice light and easy. "Are you just mad I went to the House of Flowing Gold? Surely something so trivial wouldn't enrage you so, would it? I see you had guests. Did something important happen in the Jianghu again? Honestly, Dad, leading the Light Path Alliance has brought you nothing but trouble. You have to chase down every little thing, and you fly into a rage at the tiniest incidents." "Be quiet," shouted Fu Hui, kneading at his temple. Some of the tension slowly melted from his face. "Wanqing, this is no laughing matter," he sighed, stroking his beard. "I'm sure you know the demonic guild's high priestess, Yu Shangyan, has come to the Central Plains. Rumor is she's looking for something to heal her Shijia's legs. And what a coincidence. On this very day, your Uncle Zhong of the Arcane Order was murdered with no witnesses, and his wounds have the mark of the unseen sword. Only Yu Shangyan possesses the skill to wield that blade." Fu Wanqing's lazy smile disappeared. Her expression turned grave. "You mean Yu Shangyan came to Yangzhou with an ulterior motive, Dad? Has the demonic guild made any moves? When did Uncle Zhong pass away?" 2 hours ago, Fu Hui responded. I'm immediately like, that seems fishy. I've barely known Yu Shangyan for like 30 minutes, and I'm like, I don't think that was her. I don't think she would do that. Fu Wanqing let out a breath of relief. She shook her head. "It wasn't her," she said, shaking her head. "How do you know?" Fu Wanqing laughed. "Because she was with me the whole time." "Oh, 2 hours ago. Okay, so she like just got back from this place. I wasn't sure if this was happening the same day or not." "Because she was with me the whole time. But just because Yu Shangyan had nothing to do with it, doesn't mean the rest of the demonic guild didn't. The 4 rats of Black Peak showed up in Yangzhou out of nowhere tonight. I killed them. Maybe the guild really does have something up its sleeve." "But what does that have to do with me?" Fu Wanqing nearly said it out loud, but the sight of her father, who'd done so much for the righteous Wu Lin, made her swallow the words back down. She brought her hand to her mouth and yawned, feigning exhaustion. "Dad, I'm tired. Let's talk about this tomorrow." Of course, Fu Hui knew his daughter. He gave a helpless shrug and gestured for her to go. Her? A hope for a successor? He spent more time hoping she just caused a little less trouble. Half the problems in the Jianghu were caused by Fu Wenqing herself. The crescent moon hung like a sickle in the sky, flanked by dotted stars, excuse me. An autumn breeze rustled through the seam of the open window, ruffling a lock of Fu Wenqing's hair that hung over her face. The curve of her lips deepened. Something glinted from her fingertips and sank behind the painted screen. The room remained silent but for Fu Wenqing's own breathing. Her brows drew together in confusion. As she stepped closer to the screen with its ink-washed landscape, she caught sight of a silhouette. She relaxed in relief, only to return to tense wariness in the next breath. Disciples stood guard across the House of Valor, and there were arcane arrays always active. Henry, with the theme of subverting our assumptions about the good and evil sides, I'm guessing she's being framed as an easy scapegoat and the righteous cultivators are corrupt. That immediately makes sense to me. Oh, you said, ooh, what if the dad is corrupt? Or the uncle, possibly, and she did kill him? Okay. No, I already, I'm like, something is not right. Something is not right with the good and noble side, for sure. It was impossible for an intruder to enter unnoticed, so how could she be standing here? Was she really that all-powerful? Fu Wenqing bit her lower lip, her mouth twisting in dissatisfaction. With a sweep of her sleeves, she sat in front of the dressing mirror and ran her hands through her hair. When a coolly reserved reflection appeared in the copper mirror, she laughed. Fancy seeing you here. Couldn't stay away from me, could you? Rumor has it that the women of the Jadewater Guild are all saps. Perhaps there's some truth to that, after all. Yu Shengyan's sleeves were pockmarked with holes, courtesy of Fu Wenqing's hidden darts. The wounds on her neck were already paled and scabbing over. Fu Wenqing's gaze slid slowly from her sleeve to her neck, then on to linger on Yu Shengyan's faintly pursed lips. From the drawer, she drew out a handkerchief and strode to Yu Shengyan, pressing the white silk to her throat. She smirked maliciously. If I wanted to, she said, tightening her grip, I could break your neck right now. Yu Shengyan only glanced at Fu Wenqing for a moment before she looked away. Mm-hmm, she said softly. Her apathy, insubstantial as smoke, filled Fu Wenqing with an exasperation wholly novel to her. Why did you come? She asked once more. To steal the Millennium Tortoise gallbladder for your Shijie? Sorry, the Millennium Tortoise gallbladder. Okay? Or just to take another peek at me. Those last words simmered with seduction. She put a hand on Yu Shengyan's shoulder and nestled against her, with no care for the fact that Yu Shengyan was the high priestess of the demonic guild, or that she was a woman. Yu Shengyan pushed her away, putting some distance between them. You said you paid for me. I'll leave when day breaks. However, I will not duel you. As for the gallbladder, I'll come for it another time. I have no interest in stealing. Her words only amused Fu Wenqing. Did you forget where you are? The House of Valor is ruled by the leader of the Light Path Alliance, a sworn enemy of the demonic guild. Not even a common follower of your guild could come and go unscathed, to say nothing of you, the High Priestess herself. Do you think the House of Valor will give you the medicine just because you ask politely? I'm afraid you won't leave with the gallbladder, or, for that matter, with your life. Yu Shengyan frowned. This didn't seem to have occurred to her. How did someone like her become the High Priestess of the demonic guild? Fu Wenqing's smile remained unchanging. Here's something you might not know. Just as you came to Yangzhou, Zhong Tian, the leader of the Arcane Order, was murdered. The wounds on his body match those inflicted by the unseen sword. Many suspect you, but you don't need to worry. Zhong Tian's sons, Zhong Xiling and Zhong Shixiu, both worship you. They're sure to speak on your behalf. I didn't know that, said Yu Shengyan. Fu Wanqing giggled. Of course you didn't kill him. But the question of whether your guild headquarters ordered it remains. Why did the 4 rats of Black Peak appear in Yangzhou so suddenly? Black Peak is one of the 4 halls of the Jadewater Guild, isn't it? I hear it's led by the right-hand deputy, Lo Kexin. You're the high priestess. Why come all this way when you should be managing things in your guild? Aren't you worried your disciples will cause trouble while you're gone? Yu Shengyan furrowed her brow. The 4 rats of Black Peak? She's saying that like she doesn't know who they are? The Jadewater Guild was made up of 4 separate halls. Black Peak and White Peak belonged to the right-hand deputy, Lo Kexin, while the left-hand deputy, Wei Xian, led Amber Hill and Crimson Hill. What? Now I'm thinking like white pink. The opposite. The opposing group to Blackpink. I don't know what they would sound like or be like, but that's just what came to my mind. Yu Shengyan spent her time training in seclusion and didn't involve herself in the guild's management. She had never heard of the 4 rats of Black Peak. Fu Wanqing covered her mouth and laughed, glancing at Yu Shengyan's pale face. They claimed they had the Jadewater Guild's backing to do all kinds of things. At the House of Flowing Gold, they tried to buy a night with you, Yu Shengyan, for 1 copper penny. If you stop to think about it, I got swindled. 1,000 taels of gold is no small sum. She paused, studying Yu Shengyan's expression. Her own face was the picture of regret. What a terrible tragedy. I paid for the night of a lifetime, and I can't do a single thing. To her surprise, Yu Shengyan nodded in complete earnestness. You're absolutely right, Lady Fu. Upon my return home, shall I send the gold to your manor? Fu Wanqing froze. Was this woman a genius or a complete idiot? She made no pretensions to sophistication whatsoever. She was as untouched by mortal affairs as a recluse hidden away in the mountains. Realizing this, Fu Wanqing knew she had to make full use of it. She no longer cared whether this really was Yu Shengyan's true nature or not. She was a rare source of entertainment in a life of ceaseless monotony. That was worth far more than a duel. Fu Wanqing tilted her chin, smiling brilliantly, and licked her lips. I don't care about gold. Yu Shengyan didn't expect that. A hint of unease touched her eyes. Fu Wanqing crooked her fingers and beckoned Yu Shengyan closer. I want you to stay here with me. Not for very long. Just 3 months. You don't manage the Jadewater Guild, so it won't interfere with anything over there. At the end of those 3 months, I'll give you the gallbladder you want. Your Shijie has been crippled for 3 years already. She can wait a bit longer. With barely a moment's consideration, Yu Shengyan nodded her assent. That's the end of the chapter. And now it's time for me to take a break. I do think, as short as these chapters are, it's like weird how short they are, but it makes sense. They're split at moments that make sense to split them. I think this story just kind of does a lot of like short scenes, jumping around, which also makes sense because we have to tell the whole story in one volume in one short period of time. So it makes sense for it to be written like that. I think we're kind of used to reading these like long novels, and you have to do things differently when your book is that short. Um, right, Henry, you said 15 minutes per chapter is crazy for my Arha ass. Yeah. Vase, interesting. You said methinks Yu Shangan has already been crushing. Right, I can't tell what she thinks of Fu Wanqing at this moment. Like what exactly she thinks of her and her intentions. I can't tell if she is actually that naive or like you said, Blue, you were wondering if she is naive or facetious. I can't tell. Like I feel like everything we're for some reason in my head I'm like, okay, everything we're being presented about uh Yan, wait, sorry. I'm already mixing up their names. It's Yu Shangyan. Everything we're being presented about Yu Shangyan, I'm like, but is that the case? I don't know. It's I'm suspicious of everything. Um, that's true though, Blue. QJJ also has shorter chapters and it's really long. It does kind of depend on the storytelling style. But I'm used to it having like some that are a little bit longer. The flow is a little different. But also, I'm I'm really I'm really liking this so far. Yeah, Nina, you said you're enjoying the banter. It does feel like opposite Wei Wuxian, Lan a little bit. It does feel like that a little bit. Um, I like how quickly we just like got into the banter and got into things, and we really quickly got to the premise. Which as soon as she said like "stay with me for 3 months," I was like, "Oh, that's what I remember reading about the premise." That was basically all I knew going in was like one of them needs a medication and then she agrees to like stay with her and I don't know, be her servant or something for 3 months and that's all I remember. Um yeah. Um so yeah, I'm gonna take a break and when we come back we will be on chapter 5, which is called House Arcane. And I am back. Hello, everybody. I just made a channel in the Discord for this book. And it was everything like my reading stream stuff. It was like in a category that just said Danmei, and there was like a Danmei chat. I just changed it so it's like Danmei and Baihe. Um, but yeah, because I normally do a thing where there's like two channels, and one is for theories and one is like a spoilers channel, and it's mostly for like rereaders who want to talk about things that they already know that happen later. But because this book is only one volume, it will only take us a month to get through. That felt like a little bit overkill, so I just made one channel for it. Um, but if you are a rereader and you're talking about anything past what has happened in the streams, then obviously just like use a spoiler cover on your comments. Um, but yeah. Um, yes, Cookie, that is right. The cover art is done by the same artist who did art for Scum Villain. I really like that artist. Vilinci. Um, oh yeah, Henry, you said, I knew that the white dress one was the demonic cultivator and the cocky one in red was the righteous one, which immediately caught my interest. Yeah, it's a really nice flip on what you would expect. And I like that little thing about how Fu Wanqing grew up like in an atmosphere where she was expected to be noble. And it's like because of that, she's like kind of rebelled against it or fought against it because she had so much pressure on her to be noble. So it makes perfect sense. Um, it's really fitting, and it'll be interesting to get more backstory on, why do I keep forgetting her name, on Yu Shengyan, um, to see, like, well, why is she the way she is? Already feel like there's a lot of, like, mystery with her, and there's, like, something going on there, and I'm very intrigued to kind of, like, get to know her better. Oh, Vase, you said Vilinci is on Tumblr and will give you pretty art in the dash. I need to follow them. Um, yeah, it would have been cool if they did the interior art as well, but so far from the one art I saw, I like it. I like the style of that as well. So, um, we are gonna read chapter 5 now. We're on page 43 for chapter 5, House Arcane. By the way, I just want to show y'all the little chapter illustrations that they have around the number that they always do. I really like them for this book. It's like some flowers. That's really nice. The Arcane Order had the ring of a mysterious place filled with people well versed in mystic divination, busy peering into fate's design, but it was nothing of the sort. Their leader Zhong Tian wielded a brutish battle axe, while his sons fought with hefty broadswords. And though their weapons differed, the core of their arts were the same. Dim candlelight flickered through the morning hall. The Zhong brothers grieved openly, cursing the shameless assailant for their deceit, but neither of them mentioned Yu Shangyan even once. Clearly, they had forgotten that Yu Shangyan was the only person in the world with mastery of the unseen sword. Apparently. If she'd been a man, or a very ugly woman, the brothers most likely would have cursed her name until they were blue in the face. But Yu Shangyan's beauty was such that virtually all men felt their hearts skip a beat at the sight of her, just as when they beheld Fu Wanqing's magnificence, that red and fiery rose in full bloom. The unseen sword was incredibly swift, swift as a shooting star, or perhaps even quicker. The unseen sword was impossibly light, light as mist on the river, or perhaps even softer. Who could possibly have used the unseen sword forms, other than Yu Shangyan? With her chin perched on her hand, Fu Wanqing molded over from her seat in the pavilion on the lake. She wanted to ask Yu Shangyan, who was sitting right behind her, but she knew she wouldn't answer. It was possible she didn't even know herself. A crimson maple leaf drifted to the water's surface, carried by a gentle breeze, a few more fluttering into the pavilion itself. One of the leaves was suddenly sliced to ribbons, so swiftly it seemed to blur. It was like a handful of dust thrown into the air. "Nice work," came a shout from somewhere close by. Fu Wanqing looked up through her lashes, lips rising in an alluring curve. She arranged her hair a little, her gaze flicking over the two young men in mourning garb, standing on the red bridge. Of course she knew who they were, and she'd noticed their surreptitious glances for a while now. She reveled in their admiring stares. But when she remembered Yu Shangyan was seated beside her, her pleasure was marred by a twinge of displeasure. The Zhong brothers approached, beaming. Struck by the force of a beautiful woman's grin, they'd forgotten all their troubles, including that their father's coffin still lay inside the hall. They were full brothers by blood, but they didn't really look it. Zhong Shiling, the elder, was handsome and refined and looked just like his mother, while the younger Zhong Shixiu was as wide and stocky as a caveman, much like his father. They drew near the pavilion, but dared not step inside. Fu Wanqing was gorgeous, but her beauty was thorny and untamed. The Zhong brothers had enough self-awareness to know they couldn't handle someone like her, but controlling one's eyes in the face of temptation was no easy task. Their gazes slid from Fu Wanqing, only to meet the cool regard of the white-robed woman beside her, Yu Shangyan. Shock flared to life in their eyes. They were both staunch admirers of Yu Shangyan, so of course they recognized her face. They were stunned beyond belief that a goddess like her could appear before them in the flesh. They knew it was her, but the questions that realization raised nearly made them disbelieve it. They looked back at Fu Wanqing in confusion. Fu Wanqing knew exactly what they were thinking. She smiled. "It's convincing, isn't it?" Realization dawned. The brothers nodded furiously. Zhong Shiling thought himself very clever. My lady, your skills at disguise have grown even better. Fu Wanqing was known for outrageous behavior, and so Zhong Shiling had no trouble assuming she disguised her handmaiden as Yu Shangyan. Little did they know. Fu Wanqing and Yu Shangyan could not share the same sky, surely. Fu Wanqing was so haughty that she couldn't bear those who equaled her. Her pride demanded she excise every one of them and trample them beneath her feet. Only Fu Wanqing was permitted to stand on the highest peak. Zhong Shiling wanted to praise her, but he couldn't bear to say anything unflattering about Yu Shangyan. In the end, he lowered his head and stood in silence. Fu Wanqing noticed the brothers had stared much longer at Yu Shangyan than at her. Even though they thought she was an impostor, the sight of a face that looked just like Yu Shangyan's still enchanted them. While their eyes were fixed on her, though, Yu Shangyan only gazed into the mist-veiled mountains in the distance. Fu Wanqing felt the sudden urge to gouge the brothers' eyes out. She flung her cup down on the stone table, jerking the men from their reverie. She chuckled at their confusion. Shouldn't you be managing the Arcane Order's affairs out in the front hall? What are you still doing here? Have you taken a fancy to the beauty by my side? Who would dare covet someone close to Fu Wanqing? Even if they did, they could never express it openly. They plastered smiles on their faces, cupped their hands, and turned to leave, although their slow, shuffling steps betrayed the depth of their reluctance. The old one and the young ones are the same breed of coward. Fu Wanqing scoffed as she watched them go. Nothing worth looking at here. The wind whispered a series of ripples across the lake. Sitting in that autumn breeze, Fu Wanqing found herself a little bored. Yu Shangyan stood peacefully beside her, so unobtrusive one could forget she was there. Even when she looked straight at you, it felt like those serene eyes were looking through you, at something far in the distance. Fu Wanqing had power, wealth, fame, and beauty praised by the thousands, but she still felt a hollowness in her heart. Something was missing. Was it a worthy opponent? Something like that. Fu Wanqing had one right in front of her, but she wouldn't unsheathe her sword. So, going off of the thing where, like, do we know that the sword that, why do I keep messing up her name? Yu Shanyang? Yes, Yu Shangyang. I'm sorry. Do we know that the sword that she has right now is actually the unseen sword? Like, what if someone else currently has the unseen sword and is actually able to use it, and they killed Zhong Tian? And the sword she has that she's, like, so reluctant to reveal is actually not really that sword, and so she's, like, hiding it? I don't know. Fu Wanqing stood up. I hear the unseen sword is the greatest blade in the Jianghu. And I also hear that Yu Shangyan, high priestess of the demonic guild, is the Jianghu's greatest swordswoman. Yu Shangyan glanced over Fu Wanqing's beaming face. I promised to stay by your side, she said coolly, but I will not duel you. I've already changed my mind, said Fu Wanqing. I don't want to duel. After all, it's not like I'm the only person in the Jianghu who hasn't seen your unseen sword. The hem of her sleeve slipped down as she pressed her fingertips to the underside of Yu Shengyan's jaw. She leaned in as if to kiss her on the mouth, only to turn aside. I'm keeping you here to give you a good show, she said with a giggle. 3 months is more than enough. Yu Shengyan turned away from the heat of Fu Wanqing's breath, her lips brushing Fu Wanqing's cheek as she did so. She barely seemed to register it. She simply replied to Fu Wanqing, her voice unchanging. A good show. Fu Wanqing narrowed her eyes and let go of Yu Shangyan's face, drawing back to unconsciously touch that spot on her cheek. Something indescribable rose in her heart, but Fu Wanqing had the discipline to keep it off her face. A wonderful show, indeed. In 3 months, the so-called Light Path Alliance will come crashing down, and your demonic guild will collapse from the inside out. Won't that be a lovely spectacle? Coming from anyone else, that proclamation would be chalked up as the ravings of a madwoman. But this was Fu Wanqing. In spite of yourself, you couldn't help believing her. She was the alliance leader Fu Hui's daughter, but no one knew her true desires or her true activities. If she hadn't been a Fu, everyone would see her as a demoness in human flesh, albeit a very beautiful demoness indeed. As Fu Wanqing carefully watched for Yu Shangyan's reaction, disappointment slowly overtook her. Yu Shangyan's face was emotionless, and all that passed from her lips was a quiet exhalation of understanding. As if neither the Light Path Alliance nor the Jadewater Guild had anything to do with her. The most terrifying enemies were those who cared for nothing at all. Even if it was all an act, that was still frightening. Fu Wanqing felt gooseflesh pebble her skin as she watched Yu Shangyan. There rose in her the desire to strike her dead, and killing intent followed in its wake. Yu Shangyan sensed it, but she only brushed a fallen maple leaf from Fu Wanqing's shoulder. The gesture abruptly snuffed out Fu Wanqing's murderous whims. She felt a little dejected, as if she'd lost without even drawing her sword. Loss was a foreign concept to her, she who should be perfect and without flaw. Fu Wanqing sighed softly. If I exist, why did the world have to create a Yu Shangyan? Staring at the waters of the lake and the fiery maple forests, Fu Wanqing found herself suddenly longing to play the xiao. She recalled that Qin music from their first meeting. What if they played together? That's the end of the chapter. I was going to check something real quick. Okay. I was wondering if the maple leaf might be the little insignia on the like binding of the book, but it's not. It's like why am I blanking on that? You know, the pink flowers, like cherry blossom flowers. So I'm guessing that symbolism will come in later. I don't know if you can see that very well. It doesn't want to focus, but anyway. So we yeah, phase. It's not like music duets are ever a metaphor for anything at all. And also, I'm loving. I know we keep calling them like the opposite version of like Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian, but then we also have like a Xiao and Qin duet possibly coming. So we're on page 49 for chapter 6, which is called Third in Line. An unwanted guest had come to the arcane order, a masked woman dressed all in black. Though she pitched her voice low and referred to herself as the third young master, anyone with eyes could tell she was a woman. There was likely a sumptuous figure hidden beneath those dowdy black robes. She was considered an unwanted guest because she charged in uninvited. And although she was unarmed, every arcane order disciple had collapsed as she drew close. Okay. Which order do you belong to? Name yourself, shouted Zhong Shishio, stepping forward angrily. Zhong Shiling stood beside his brother. You dare not show your face. Are you hiding something unspeakable? The Zhong brothers were always together, even when facing an enemy. Wind tossed their clothes, and their hands were already on the hilts of the broadswords on their backs. Their faces were set in grim lines, heralding the arrival of a terrible storm. They did not imagine this intruder had come to pay their respects. And indeed, she had not. The third young master had come for revenge. She scoured the brothers, one broad and one skinny, and mockery caught a light in her eyes. She thought little of the arcane order's disciples and of these two men. The guests had long since departed. Something about a conference at the House of Valor over how best to face the Jadewater Guild. Apart from those useless disciples, these two cowardly lechers were the only people who remained at the arcane order. Indignant fury blazed to life in the third young master's eyes. She strode into the hall, ignoring the broadswords that swept toward her head. Though the sharp blades were wreathed in force, they never reached their target. Slender hands caught both massive swords, that impossible might slamming to a halt against creamy, delicate fingers. Yes, the word used was creamy. Okay. A flush crawled up the Zhong brothers' faces. Inside, they quailed with pain as the third young master's true chi poured into their bodies through the hilts of their swords. With two loud clangs, both of them collapsed to the ground. The third young master leaped into the morning hall. Her hands tightened into fists. As she stared at the coffin, the look in her eyes went from rage to serenity. The third young master slid to her knees on top of a nearby prayer mat and performed 3 deep and reverential kowtows. The Zhong brothers clambered back to their feet, astonished to see the third young master performing such formal rites. The tension melted from their faces, and their eyes curved into crescents. They cupped their hands. A friend, then. My apologies for the earlier. Offense never made it out of their mouths. Their smiles stiffened and their faces paled. The third young master had stood up, and her powerful eyes flared with unrivaled killing intent. Her hand rested on the lid of the coffin. The slightest push would reveal Zhong Tian's corpse. Tears glittered at the corners of her eyes, though the brothers couldn't tell if they were from grief or delight. She no longer bothered to hide the tinkling chime of her voice. I've returned what I owe. Now the debt must be repaid. Yes, Blue, you said note to translators. Creamy fingers is weird. Use fair, soft, satiny, whatever. Agreed. I think satiny would have been a good alternative for what they were going for there. Something like that. The brothers charged with the howl, swords flashing. They came at her from both sides, their blades stirring up a gale that scraped at her skin, and poured true chi into their hands, devoting all their strength to killing the villain before them. The third young master didn't fight back. Amid the storm of sword glares, she flew nimbly away like a butterfly through flowers. Then, with a flick of her fingers, she sent both their swords flying from their hands. The brothers stared, stricken silent, not because they'd lost, but because the finger flick attack was a closed practice of the Zhong family. Zhong Shishio's voice shook. Who are you? How do you know the finger flick attack? Wailed Zhong Shiling. The two of them knew of it, but had shamefully failed to master it themselves. Unimportant, they figured. At worst, the technique would die with them. But seeing it performed by an outsider filled them both with a crushing shame that quickly transformed into aggressive fury. Their hands tightened into fists, knuckles creaking, but they knew very well that the third young master had been merciful. If she really wanted them dead, they would have already been slaughtered 10 times over. Blue. Yeah, I agreed. An arcane order disciple came staggering into the hall. Young masters, hurry, go to the back courtyard and find Lady Fu, shouted Zhong Shixiu. Hurry, go and report to the House of Valor that the demonic guild has invaded the arcane order. That one was Zhong Shiling. Now, is this actually someone from the demonic guild? They didn't know who this woman was or whether she actually belonged to the demonic guild. But the thought of having Fu Wanqing nearby eased their minds. No woman existed whom Fu Wanqing could not defeat. Is that true, though? Now the brothers looked upon the third young master with smugness, cut with pity. The mere mention of Fu Wanqing's name, they'd convinced themselves that this third young master was done for. Young master, Lady Fu left a long time ago, wailed the disciple. The smiles disappeared. Fear glimmered in their eyes. It was the third young master's turn to grin. The Zhong brothers lowered their heads. How had Fu Wanqing slipped away? But then again, she was like that, coming and going without a trace. Of course, she wouldn't bother to let the host know. If it hadn't been for Fu Hui, she probably wouldn't even have bothered to come at all. The House of Flowing Gold, the Mansion of Beauties, the Bamboo Viewing Pavilion. Fu Wanqing might show up anywhere, but she wouldn't stick around at the morning hall. She didn't care for that kind of thing, so she'd left. After a bath, she had changed into clean robes, neat and tidy. Fu Wanqing allowed herself not the slightest flaw, especially not in front of Yu Shangyan. Night had fallen. Lantern light played in the glow of the moon, lifting the darkness of the lake. As the autumn breeze came and went, the water's surface rippled and shone. Lilting song filled the air like the piping of an oriole, courtesy of the talented beauties from the House of Flowing Gold, who'd been invited in by wealthy men. Perfumed makeup mingled the fragrance of wind. Rough breathing rang counterpoint to raucous laughter. A scene of dissolute debauchery. The harmonies of a Qin and a Xiao drifted suddenly from a single exquisite pleasure boat drifting across Shouxi Lake. All other sounds faded away, leaving only their duet to echo across the water. The Qin rang clear and crisp. The Xiao played sweet and mellow. Then the music came to an abrupt stop. A smile was fixed on Fu Wanqing's face, but she'd crushed the xiao in her hand to dust. Yu Shangyan sat serenely across from her, hands drawn away from the Qin and back into her sleeves. Any listener would have found their duet melodious and beautiful, but Fu Wanqing knew Yu Shangyan's playing had dominated her own. The sound of that Qin had enveloped her completely, pulling her into Yu Shangyan's realm of reserved distance. But Fu Wanqing refused to admit defeat. She licked her lips and laughed. Yu Shangyan, in the next 3 months, you are not allowed to play the Qin in front of me. She knew Yu Shangyan would agree to any request she made as long as it wasn't a duel. How had the Jadewater Guild, said to be the worst among demons, produced someone so wonderful? Fu Wanqing was struck by a desire to visit the home of the Jadewater Guild, Green Jade Isle, but she dismissed it quickly. There was something more important she had to do. She couldn't ruin her whole plan just for Yu Shangyan. If someone else made these requests of you, said Fu Wanqing, would you still say yes? Yu Shangyan glanced at her. There is no one else, she said mildly. Fu Wanqing laughed again, this time at herself. Was she really expecting flattery from Yu Shangyan? Described positively, her responses were ethereally bloodless. Less positively, she was stiff as a board and just as dull. Maybe you're misunderstanding her comment that she made. Or Yu Shangyan of the Unseen Sword, High Priestess Yu Shangyan of the Demonic Guild. Who exactly was she? Could that unchanging face show no other emotions? Fu Wanqing refused to believe it. She sauntered over and deposited herself once again in Yu Shangyan's lap, wrapping her arms around her neck and making her take all her weight. She could count every one of her lowered lashes. Yu Shengyan remained impassive, but her own heart skipped a beat. To her furious shame. Okay, hold on. To her furious shame, she was overcome by an impulse she could hardly believe. Fu Wanqing pressed her mouth to Yu Shengyan's. That's a kiss in the first stream of the book, and I know it's just one volume, it's short, but still, that's impressive. Yu Shengyan's expression didn't change, but Fu Wanqing felt herself go red. When she pulled away, she couldn't even make herself smile anymore. She needed to get out of Yu Shengyan's lap, but a sudden grip on her waist pinned her tight. Yu Shengyan drew closer until all distance between them disappeared. The touch of her lips was as light as a dragonfly skimming water. Then she abruptly pulled away. She blinked. Just like that. Fu Wanqing's voice came out as a humiliated snarl. Why are you toying with me? Toying with you? Yu Shengyan pronounced the words carefully, eyes never leaving Fu Wanqing's face. There was a plaintive note to her voice. Didn't you kiss me first? See, my question right now is, who is really in control? Because Fu Wanqing is like, Yu Shengyan, you're gonna do what I want. Like, you won't duel me, but you'll do anything else, and you'll be by my side for 3 months. And Yu Shengyan is like, okay. And then, but I kind of feel like Yu Shengyan is the one who's, like, really in control of the situation, and she's doing what she wants to do. That's the end of the chapter. We have one more chapter. Yeah, Blue, you said, nah, I'm sorry, but Fu Wanqing sounds pretty bratty, bottomy to me. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. So, we're on page 55 for chapter 7, which is called Iron Monk. Talking to Yu Shengyan was frustrating, but being interrupted by a random nobody in the middle of talking to Yu Shengyan was infuriating. Fu Wanqing wasn't an agreeable woman. She was, in fact, irascible and ruthless. When it came down to it, she lived by one principle and one principle only. Piss her off and she'd kill you. Fu Wanqing slid off Yu Shengyan's lap, the rosy sunset flush gone from her face. That captivating smile promised only murder. She brushed non-existent dust from her clothes, but her eyes remained fixed on the hulking man who stood on the stern of the boat. He was around 40 or so, his chin covered in black stubble. A gnarled scar covered his right cheek, and a chunk of iron chain lay against his gray cloth robes. His eyes narrowed in apoplectic fury. Shameless bitch. He spat viciously on the ground, gaze full of scorn. Yu Shengyan turned to Fu Wanqing. An acquaintance of yours? She asked lightly. Blue, you said Blackpink and Iron Man in a single stream. Fu Wanqing recognized him, though she'd hardly call them acquainted. He was one of the few men whose heart wasn't enraptured with her, because it was crammed to the brim with hatred instead. He'd taken a terrible defeat at her hands. Maybe the author is a Stray Kids fan. Face. This burly man, one Ma-san, had made a name for himself in their circles. He was known as the Iron Monk. He'd once been a disciple of the Shaolin Monastery, and when he left, he joined the Guanxi Convoy, a convoy company in the Weiyang Company's network, as an escort captain. Those within the Jianghu respected him, as he'd gone over a decade without a single loss. But that had all changed last year. Not only did he lose his job, he'd also lost his pride. He'd been given that scar in his face by the same person who'd hijacked his convoy, a constant reminder of his humiliation. He'd been escorting a jade Guanyin statue personally carved by the clever hands, Lu Qi, the finest artisan in the world. Never mind delivering it to the hands of the young lady of the House of Valor, he never even made it out of Guanxi. Ma-san had been forced to watch as his escort was hijacked on his own territory. It wasn't just an affront to his own pride. It was a mark of shame for the entire Weiyang Company alliance. Their head captain couldn't even look Fu Hui in the eye anymore. Losing Lady Fu's birthday present was unspeakably embarrassing. Unbearably so. But who would have imagined that the hijacker was Lady Fu herself? Ever since then, Ma-san had been investigating the incident, bent on clearing his name, and his discoveries were beyond belief. Ma-san shook off his memories, snapping out the chain he held close to his chest. It was a chained blade, one he'd had specially made. He'd merged the essence of the Shaolin Monastery's Dharma strike and Arhat punch techniques into his blade forms, creating a martial path of his own. Everyone reveres you as the young lady of the House of Valor, but I, Ma-san, will not, he shouted. That facade of yours might deceive everyone else, but I, Ma-san, won't be fooled. Henry, you said the author sure is saying something here. The male characters either only focus on the MC's look or hate her and call her a bitch. Yep. Lady Fu, you possess the heart of a snake and the mind of a scorpion, twisted and cruel. That jade Guanyin disappeared in my keeping. You really must have been intent on ruining my reputation and my pride. Fu Wanqing toyed with her hands, then smiled up at Ma-san brilliantly enough to melt his heart. When she spoke, her voice was as soft as silk sliding across skin. Ma-san had never heard a woman's voice curl so sweetly before, and his expression changed instantly. He was no longer a man with a grudge. He was a man burning with machismo, wanting nothing but to pluck that thorned rose for himself. What had Fu Wanqing just said? The jade Guanyin was already mine. What's wrong with taking custody of it a bit earlier? Ma-san grinned, that terrible scar twisting his features. Yes, he panted. You did me no wrong. I've changed my mind. I don't want revenge. I want you to come with me, Lady Fu. YouTube is still doing the translating the chats thing. Henry, you said vom, which agreed, and it made it say from the. Okay. Where was I? What would it mean to have Fu Wanqing for himself? It would mean power, wealth, and the pleasures of beauty. So many young lords came vying for Fu Wanqing's attention that the House of Valor's doorstep was in danger of cracking under their weight, but not a one had ever caught her eye. Ma-san knew he'd never win her favor, but he trusted the chained blade in his hand. After all, no matter how the legends painted her, she was just a woman. Ma-san's gaze swept from Fu Wanqing to Yu Shengyan. He stroked his coarse stubble and nodded in satisfaction, watching these women, both fully capable of overturning the entire Jianghu, like purchases he was about to make. Some people were a waste of the eyes in their head, and Ma-san was one of them. Fu Wanqing hadn't lost her smile, but what spilled from those crimson lips was a stream of the most vulgar malice imaginable. Who do you think you are? Why don't you piss a puddle on the ground and take a good look at your own reflection? Did you forget about that scar on your face? Ma-san's bulky form flinched. Of course he hadn't forgotten it. He'd never seen the strike coming. Just a flare of blue-green light, and then his face was a mess of blood. Through all his years in the Jianghu, he'd never experienced anything like that. He was convinced his attacker had used some kind of monstrous spell. Ma-san was a haughty man. Fu Wanqing's mocking disdain transformed the desire and sympathy he felt for these beautiful women into flaming rage. With a crazed howl, he sent his chained blade smashing down toward her, whipping through the air to sink home with a force that could topple mountains. With a dull thunk, a body hit the ground. The chained blade whistled through the air, smashing a hole in the cabin. "My lady," came a respectful voice from outside. "Master requests you return home." Fu Wanqing smoothed out her sleeves, glancing at the man lying in a pool of his own blood. She laughed. Way to ruin the mood. She went on tiptoes, whirling into the air like a wisp of smoke. With a palm strike to one paper lantern, the beautiful pleasure boat went up in flames. In the light of the fire that illuminated a whole patch of the night sky, one white-robed figure swept out, with utter calmness and ease. Yu Shengyan kept to her oath. She followed Fu Wanqing. Thankfully, Fu Wanqing was known for her eccentricity, and everyone in the House of Valor believed Yu Shengyan to be a disguised impostor, with the exception of the wily old fox Fu Hui, who had the penetrating eyes of a lit torch. Is Fu Hui Fu Wanqing's father? I forgot his name. I think that's him? Yu Shengyan went to wait in Fu Wanqing's chambers, while Fu Wanqing herself answered a summons to the study to discuss urgent matters. Urgent matters, meaning the Jianghu business Fu Wanqing detested. Probably has something to do with the mysterious black-robed woman who I would love to know more about. Fu Wanqing despised the Jianghu and the leader of its Light Path Alliance, Fu Hui. Wait, is that her actual father? Is it? No. I mean, that's one way to say that you hate your dad. Everyone in the House of Valor knew it, too, but they dared not comment, and dared even less to interfere. There was too much going on there. All they could do was sigh. Fu Hui's brows were tightly knit, and there was a worried cast to his face. He rarely spent any time at home. He was always busy traveling from sect to sect. He looked up in exhaustion. "The woman you brought back is the High Priestess Yu Shengyan," he said, doing his best to keep his tone soft. Fu Wanqing giggled, batting her eyelashes. "So what if she is? And so what if she isn't?" That careless indifference of hers always pricked at Fu Hui's temper. He took a deep breath. The righteous and demonic factions of the Jianghu have fought for a very long time. If the High Priestess Yu Shengyan is in our manor, the demonic guild must be up to something. Since she dares to walk into this trap, we must make the most of it. I'm glad you brought her here. Well done. Fu Wanqing arched an eyebrow. Who said I was trying to catch her? She's mine. And who would dare to touch one of my people? This was as good as admitting Yu Shengyan's identity. But what Fu Wanqing meant by it was that Yu Shengyan was under her protection, and no one could harm her. Fu Wanqing's word was good, and Fu Hui knew it. Fu Wanqing got her looks from her deceased mother, but the source of her temper was a mystery. Logical reasoning, emotional appeals, none of it was ever any use with Fu Wanqing. Fu Hui's expression darkened. If the Jianghu knew Yu Shengyan was staying safe and sound at the House of Valor, they'd think we were colluding with the demonic guild. The House of Valor's reputation would be destroyed overnight. Wanqing, This is no joking matter. I need you to restrain your little impulses. I don't expect you to do anything for the Jianghu or the Light Path Alliance. I just ask that you not add to the trouble. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll have to forgive me my callousness. The Wulin is in enough chaos as it is. You may not have heard. There's a strange new power rising, outside of the Light Path Alliance and the Demonic Guild. Fu Wanqing scoffed, but her smile faded. She brushed back her hair, her eyes turning cold. Dad, she murmured, if only you'd wrung my neck when I was a baby, none of this would have happened. You've had so many chances to do it, but you missed every last one. What are you going to do now? The illustrious hero, Fu Hui, was no longer Fu Wanqing's equal. Damn indeed, Blue. The world at large might not have realized the truth, but these two knew it well. A tinkling laugh echoed through the study. Like a wisp of smoke, Fu Wanqing drifted away. A series of loud crashes rang out behind her. A pity for those inanimate objects. They'd become an outlet for Fu Hui's rage. That's the end of the chapter. That's the end of what we're reading today, and perfect timing. It is 5:01. What a beginning to this book. I don't think I could have predicted, like, any of that. Really, I knew, like, the most basic of the premise, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know how this is gonna go down. I didn't think, like, why do I keep, I'm so sorry. Yu Shangyan. I keep being like, it's YS something, and my brain keeps losing her name, and I don't know why. I didn't expect Yu Shangyan to be so, like, on one hand, she's very firm and, like, I'm not going to duel you. But she just goes along, and is just very calm. And I wasn't expecting it to be such an easy arrangement to get into, of, like, the 3 months staying with me thing. So I'm very curious, like, how that's going to develop. And we literally got a kiss in the first stream, which I'm still, like, reeling. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, Blue, this was very fun, except for the parts where I was rooting for the men to be skinned. Yeah, that's real. Very real. There's a lot of skinnable men in this story, is one way that you could put that. Yeah, Blue, you said it's always the quiet ones. Yeah, Cookie, it was fun. Yeah, I'm having a great time. Henry, you said, I can't wait for Yu Shengyan to show more emotion towards Fu Wanqing. I feel like I'm super excited for that. I also feel like there's a thing where, like, over time, maybe, like, she's, like, the stoic type that, like, she shows an emotion, but it's barely discernible. But if you, like, really know her, you can see it. And I'm kind of getting that, like, that vibe from her. And so I'm waiting to, like, I don't know, for Fu Wanqing to, like, notice more of that. Like, just both things. Very exciting. Um, yeah, this was really cool. I'm, like, really hyped about this, honestly. And very flirty from the very beginning, which I don't know what I was expecting, but it was, like, more than I thought. They're just like, here we go. It's happening. Um, and I'm very, like, I feel like I'm already generating a lot of theories in my head, and there's already, like, characters where I'm like, who is this person? What the heck is going on here? This is not what it seems. There's, like, a conspiracy going on. There's something is up. Something is fishy. I see. Yeah, Blue, you said that first lap laying scene took me out for like 5 minutes, not straight. The, oh, Henry, you said, I love stoic women. You don't get that often in Western fiction, at least. That's a good point. It's sort of like not as common of a character archetype. Yeah, I really like, both of these characters, and I love the way Fu Wanqing like completely told off her dad. At first, I thought that the relationship with her and her dad was just like difficult and animosity, but not like super bad. But in that moment, it was like, oh no, it actually said like she hates him or she hates Fu Hui or something like that. And it's like, no, like he's disappointed in her and she just like hates him. And it's like, it's on. Like, this is a bad relationship. And I'm like curious to see where that goes. It just all the stuff with like the pressure on Fu Wanqing to be perfect. And it shows in how she gets mad at Yu Shengyan for like being better at the chin than her on the Xiao. She just like destroys the Xiao. And it's like she's into Yu Shengyan, but she's also seeing her as a rival and being like, no one can be better than me, no one can be more perfect than me. Um, so the like having an equal match is going to be really interesting for like her development. Yeah, Blue, you said when you get them, they're like they're the not like other girls type or the crazy female rage villain. Yeah, and I like just in both characters, we barely have anything, but they already feel well developed and like nodding to certain tropes without being tropey. Like I I really like this so far. This is awesome. Um, thank you so much for joining the stream today, and I will be back on Wednesday with chapters 8 through 13. Um, all of these streams are probably going to be slightly shorter than some of my QJJ streams, which have run a little bit long sometimes because those books are kind of chunky. So these will be like a regular length to maybe like cutting a tiny bit short. Um, but we'll have 8 streams of this book as well. So yeah, I'll see y'all again on Wednesday. Thank you for coming. Have a good rest of your day. See ya.